questions. And so without further ado, we will get into it, and I will allow Matt to do the majority of the talking. I'll probably ask you a lot of questions, Matty, and encourage a lot of the athletes to keep this very informal and just ask questions, either put them in the chat or just unmute and ask a question. It's very relaxed the way we do this. We'll go through an intro. You can let everyone know who you are and what you do, and then we'll go through principles and a practical review, and then certainly have an open Q&A. Everyone, just a reminder at the end of the questionnaire, at the end of the session, if you could just complete the questionnaire, that would be fantastic. Matty, okay. Over to you.
Well, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it, and thank you, Fuelin, for having me. You know, I've been I wanted to get on that first call with Craig. Unfortunately, I was sick and I couldn't make it, and thought it was probably best. But this is cool too. Thank you so much for having me. It's it really is gonna blow your socks off. We'll see about that. But if you have any questions, please jump in there. Stop me while I'm going. All good. But yeah, so I've been a strength coach my whole career. I am from Bermuda originally, and I went to university in the UK, and then I entered the professional sports world in the US. So I was with the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA, and was there for a few years. And then I went up north to Toronto, where I worked with Scott at the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I was there for quite a long time, 4 years. And then I've just finished 3 years with the Anaheim Ducks in the NHL as well. There I was, at one point, I was the head of sports science as well as the head strength and conditioning coach. So yeah, so I've kind of been around a little bit. I was also in collegiate sport for a while at UC Santa Barbara. So I've worked with athletes from all sorts, from hockey to pole vault. I've done all sorts of stuff. So I'm excited to get into it with you guys and hear the questions and what's on your minds.
And Matty, yeah. you also worked on the West Coast. What was that group you worked with?
P3.
P3, which a lot of Americans are probably familiar with. Do you want to just explain what that was?
They're a very cool place. They do a huge biomechanical assessment of professional athletes and really do get a fingerprint of each person as an athlete and what they need with regards to their training. And you know, it's all about baseline testing regularly, and really giving a stimulus that changes performance. So they're doing a great job over there. But yeah, it's been interesting because when I first got into strength training, they were very much the unique outfit. But now that technology is improving and the cost point for technology has improved as well, a lot of teams are having this, and so really the standard of athletes is really improving. So, and as a result of that, research is churning out really quick. So yeah, it's an exciting time for strength and conditioning sports performance.
No, I think it is.
So, and I should just mention that, and now I'm back in Bermuda now. I've just started my own company called Tempest Pro. And basically it's an online strength and conditioning platform for athletes around the world. So whatever sport they do, it's in supplement to their sports training. You know, we'll do everything from mobility, strength and conditioning. We'll hook up with Fuelin. It's yeah, it's exciting. I'm pumped for it.
No, it is super exciting to have your expertise and be there. Question, and just around this, because I know you've worked with Olympic athletes as well, and collegiate, and I guess most of the athletes probably on this are looking at this and they're saying the Maple Leafs, the Anaheim Ducks, NBA, NHL, that, you know, just to clarify, you have worked with endurance athletes in the past.
Oh yeah.
And just elaborate on that a little bit, so there is that level of confidence as well that you know how to program for endurance
for
athletes.
Sure. Well, I actually was a triathlete as well. Here in Bermuda, I did it for a long time, and I actually went to world champs one year. And you know, so triathlon is a passion of mine. And yeah, I've worked with a lot of endurance athletes, whether it be track and field, cross country, long distance running, long distance swimming. So yeah, it's exciting. The cool thing about being a strength coach is that you can do that. You can work with athletes from all sorts of sports. You know, you're not only aligned with one sport. And well, some people are. Some people want to be the hockey strength coach or the basketball strength coach. But I think it's pretty cool how you can, you know, gain something from one sport and put it to another. And there's a lot of things that transfer. So yeah.
I completely agree, Matty. So it's always good to hear that. So let's dive into this now. The focus, obviously, in the postseason is geared around, and I know there's a lot of conversation about this, and we've had this about, you know, what is strength training for a triathlete and how does it differ in season to postseason? And what we're talking about here specifically is improvement in body composition. Yeah. So, which is going to look significantly different in training volume, training intensity to what in-season training would be. So can you just elaborate on sort of your, I put in a couple of little tabs in here just in case, you know, that I added in, but do you want to just outline what your thoughts are around body composition and what contributes to that, and some areas and mistakes and things like that you might have seen in the past?
Yeah, for sure. And as you say, this is, you know, one segment of sports performance with body comp, improving body composition. And, you know, not every triathlete needs to improve body composition. So this is very much, it's funny because you look online at strength and conditioning for triathletes or something, and it's so generic and like as if every athlete's the same. But like I was saying about P3, is every athlete needs something a little different. So in terms of body composition and improving that for performance, I'll go through it now, but these are the key points of things to keep in mind, and kind of the reason how it works. You're not just kind of going into the gym aimlessly and running on the treadmill or whatnot. So yeah, basically metabolic rate is the big one there. And, you know, resting metabolic rate is basically, you know, the number of calories you need to kind of maintain homeostasis, and that your body needs to require basic functions, you know, like breathing and digestion, circulation. And it's kind of, I always tell people it's kind of like a furnace, you know, in the train, you know, and the train's going one speed, and you know, to maintain that speed, they need to put in so much coal, right? So it's burning at a specific level. To lose weight and improve body comp, I should say improve body comp, not lose weight. To improve body composition, because you could maintain the same weight, just increase your lean mass, and your fat goes down, and you may have maintained the exact same weight, but you're way more athletic now. So I shouldn't say weight loss. So,
although weight loss can be important as well.
Yeah, depending on the guy, on the person, I should say.
Yeah,
it depends on the athlete.
Yeah, because running economy can be improved through weight loss, and it is
100%. But in terms of body composition for this one,
for sure.
I would RMR is vital, and the great thing is, like, how do you improve resting metabolic rate? And the big one is resistance training. You know, you put on more lean muscle through resistance training. That basically makes your body up the need for the furnace, you know, more caloric demand to maintain the basic functions of life. So, you know, resistance training will help with that. So I have it in there. It says activity equals resistance training plus high intensity interval training. The high intensity interval training is interesting because it's kind of like an add-on caloric sum that really helps as well. So you have the resistance training, but then you add on like a finisher at the end of a session that's really high intensity, and that you know, that makes a function called EPOC basically, and it's excessive post-exercise oxygen consumption. Jeez, I knew I was going to get it. Basically, it's, you know, it's your furnace lasting longer, and it keep burning. So, it's been shown numerous times in research that, you do a steady state workout, your epoch after a session is only so much. Let's say it's like you think about half a triangle and it's very steep, like you're not going to get the benefit 10 hours from now or 12 hours, whatnot. But if you do high intensity interval training, that slope is much slower, going back to homeostasis. So you get that added caloric demand throughout the day. So that with those two combined, you really do get, the bang for your buck. And then I see you wrote activity up there, plus activity, and that's another thing. Everyday walking. I think so many people don't appreciate how much that actually helps. So if you're an athlete, if you're a triathlete who lives in a city, gets an Uber everywhere, for the off season, for if you really want to improve body comp, start walking a little bit more. And I know that it might sound boring, but it really will improve body composition as well as your training and resistance training.
Yeah, and I just added in, so I think it is really good point to make, Matty, what you've said there is, and it's nearly like, and maybe the second point should be exercise. It really should be resting metabolic rate, activity, exercise, NEAT, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. What NEAT is actually fidgeting. So I move a lot. I'm one of those people who waves their hands a lot. This is NEAT. There are people, and that actually contributes a significant amount to metabolic burn, or to caloric burn, I should say. There are people who don't move at all. They actually have reduced amounts of NEAT. Tapping your foot, it's a study that Elizabeth and I were laughing about. It was about what's called a soleus push-up. It's literally doing a single heel raise at your desk. And there was this weird study that showed that it actually increased like significantly caloric burn. Now, is it NEAT or is it activity? But it's certainly not exercise. And so NEAT is one of those really unique things to an individual. And then TEF is thermic effect of food. Thermic effect of food is the way in which certain macronutrients can impact metabolism or metabolic burn, i.e. protein has a much higher thermic effect than carbohydrates, and carbohydrates has a higher effect than fat, with fat being negligible in terms of TEF. Hence why a high protein diet, especially in the off season, can be, maybe significant in terms of improving some of that metabolic rate as well. So I think I should add into this that exercise equals resistance training plus high intensity interval training to improve body composition. So
yeah, that's interesting about the fidgeting for sure. I've
never heard the fidgeting is fascinating. It probably does explain me a lot, why I just move a lot, I think. And you see this in individuals who are just, they move a lot and they're just very busy. So anyway, keep going. Multi-joint strength movements. I know we've got a lot to talk
strength
about,
movements.
so.
I mean, there's a whole host of benefits for multi-joint strength movements with regards to training. First off, and when we say multi-joint, we're meaning, push-ups, squats, pull-ups, anything that requires more than one. And there really isn't that many exercises nowadays that are single joint. So basically, if you find yourself on an exercise machine, just doing a calf raise, you're probably not in the right spot. But I think it's kind of moved away from that anyways, training that most people wouldn't even think about doing those things anymore. But multi-joint strength movements have so many benefits in terms of testosterone response, for improving. Oh, I got a little chat here.
What's that?
Oh, sorry.
We'll answer the chats. We'll answer the chats. Don't worry, Matty.
Gotcha. Sorry. Testosterone response is massively increased with multi-joint movements. It's just more athletic. You think about your sport, it's a multi-joint sport. It's sport specific, improves so many areas of balance, core stability, the list goes on, basically. Lifestyle mistakes and nutrition mistakes. I mean, Scott will be able to jump in there way more about the nutrition. What I would say about nutrition, jumping ahead a little bit, the one thing I always see with people trying to lose weight is they'll do the resistance training and high intensity interval training, which is great. But then, you know, they'll eat to how they think they need to replenish the calories, if you know what I mean. So they're listening to their body, what should I say? They're listening to their mind rather than their body. They're, you know, they've dug a big hole and now they're filling it in with even more dirt. You know,
and it's interesting you say that, mate, because then it is a really good point to make again for all the athletes listening to this, is that one of the downside of high intensity interval training is that generally it only lasts somewhere, I mean, true hits is 8 minutes, isn't it? Like if you look at true Tabata, 20 on, 10 off, it's 8 minutes generally, somewhere between 4 and 8 minutes. Now it is exhausting. If anyone's done a true Tabata session where on an assault bike, for instance, you are dead at the end. Now you did 4 minutes work, you feel like you deserve, I don't know, you deserve at least a whole pizza and about 3 craft beers and whatnot. And, you know, you feel like you've done a lot of work, but your total caloric expenditure from that 4 minutes might be 150 calories.
Yeah.
So because it was only 4 minutes. Now, obviously, if you start multiplying that and you're doing longer high intensity interval training, it is obviously very beneficial. You talked about the epoch and that, but your point about being mindful about what is eaten post session is so important, because I think it does drive hunger, because people have that feeling they've done a lot. So a very good reminder.
It reminds me of when we were at the Maple Leafs, and, you know, you get players that you look on the game sheet afterwards and they may only have 8 minutes of work, you know, and but they're eating the big post-game meal, and you're looking at them, you're like, you only really exercise for 8 minutes. I know it's like high intensity, but it's, you know, you got to think about the give and take here. Do you deserve the same amount of carbohydrate as the guy that played 26 minutes? You know, probably not.
and that's a good point. It's like, you know, when we look at your program, our nutrition program will be built around your program, because we know, okay, they're doing strength for, you know, 50 minutes here, which is strength and high intensity. And we know that it's going to be Z3 or above. We know it's 50 minutes. We will build in the appropriate amounts of nutrition based on that, based on the purpose of the individual. And in this case, if the individual's purpose is to improve body composition and lose weight, then they need to be in a caloric deficit in order to achieve that. And so I think it is really important to then acknowledge the, you know, the principles of physics, which is you need to be in a caloric deficit, and be appropriate and mindful for portions and food beyond that. Matty, if we talk about, and I know Oscar or Craig talked about progressive overload and how your training blocks work, can you give an overview to the athletes of how you would structure, you know, from day one, maybe working through how long are your training blocks and what would that look like for them?
Okay, well, in terms of body comp in the off season, like now,
how would you first start off the athlete from day one?
Yeah, so I think it's important to say what time of the season this is for you, and so knowing that this is your off season and you want to improve body comp, your time in the gym has to take priority. I'm not saying you don't touch your bike. I'm not saying you don't go to the pool, go for a run, but you have to think about, okay, this is what's going to get me my results later. So for this 8 weeks, this is a priority, meaning on the same day that I'm doing my leg lift, let's say full body resistance training day, maybe I shouldn't do a 3-hour ride in the morning, you know, because you're not going to get the benefit that you need. You won't be going when you do the high intensity interval training at the end of the session, you're going to be spent anyways. You know, you're not going to be able to get up there into the numbers that really are high intensity interval training of like 90% of VO2 because you're just mentally fatigued and, you know, physically. So I think that's important. So I would say for this time of year, it's important to get a good stimulus. So 3 days a week. I would say that sessions don't have to last longer than 45 minutes to an hour. I think that if you go beyond that, you know, one, you're going to have a really upset family and friends, you know, and two, you're probably not going hard enough. You know, if you're lifting for that long, you know, you probably need to put some more weight on it, or you need to work harder in the high intensity interval training. So I think 45 minutes is a good supplementary load for resistance training.
And would you? Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just moving on. What were you going to say?
I was going to ask, and do you said like 3 times a week, would you distinguish that between, say, a novice lifter and someone who is an intermediate and an advanced? Would you, are you structuring it that way, or would you still give them 3 days a week and then it would be a variation in exercise complexity?
Yeah, exactly. I think it depends on the amount of time they actually want to put into this. You know, if they're a weekend warrior and they're just like, I only want a 5-hour training week, I'm like, okay, we're going to work out twice a week then, you know, because you got some other things that you want to touch on. But if you're putting in the time and you're a novice, intermediate, or advanced, I would still probably say 3 times a week, but we alter the actual exercise, the nuts and bolts of the session to accommodate to your level of lifting, which is very easy to the interesting thing is, like, you could put make a session and not write the actual exercise names. You could say multi-joint pull, multi-joint push, you know, hip hinge, something like that. And then there are so many exercises that fall into each of these categories, from super advanced pull exercises, for instance, to very novice pull exercises.
Yeah.
But you can still work the same muscles, the same multi-joints. You know, you're going to be touching the same muscles. It'll just be not as athletic, really, you know.
Yeah.
And then as you get more into it, then you start adding more intermediate ones, and then finally advanced. But I think three days is fine.
Yeah. And with the training blocks, are you working on a 4-week training block or a 5-week training block for the individual athlete?
I mean, it depends on the person, but I would say 4-week. What their coach has, I'd probably work with that. Yep. But if it was just a program that I just put out there, it would be 4-week. Yep. Probably a week in the middle that's more of a recovery week to allow you to like the progressive overload to really see the benefits in that stimulus and let your body become used to it, really. Sorry.
Yeah.
The circuit focus, it says their main training block. I think that's important just for this population of athletes is, you know, really do these circuits, mindful circuits, and I'll talk about what actually is in them in the next slide. But I think circuit focus is important because we're not looking to make you into the Hulk, you know. We're looking to make you more efficient in movement, stronger, more robust. And I think that's important for triathletes to do circuit type strength training where you have 4 or 5 exercises and you're rolling through them, rather than do an exercise, hang out for a while, do an exercise, hang out for a while. Because if you're not an advanced lifter, are you doing enough stimulus in that lift to warrant that rest? So I think it's important just to, especially when someone's new to the game, to kind of, you know, just move in different ways and do different strength movements.
And with that circuit like, again, would you delineate that between the novice, intermediate, and then maybe the advanced lifter, knowing that their intensity is potentially going to be better with the intermediate or advanced lifter, and therefore maybe not program as much circuits? Would that be something you would consider with these athletes?
Yeah, definitely. I think that circuits are vital for this population anyways, just because it might not be high intensity interval training, but they are on the move.
Yeah.
So I think that's important anyways. But yeah, an advanced lifter, I think it's important to, if you are an advanced lifter with history in this, I think it's okay to do a heavy squat for sure. Like, why not even advanced and intermediate lifter? Why not do a squat at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then go into your circuits. But it's circuits are interesting because you think of the word circuit and you kind of just think of a mishmash of random exercises and people just go around in a circle doing it. And that's kind of how health clubs present it. But you can make a very interesting circuit where they might have a big prime mover at the beginning, like a big squat. And then they actually do, it's called antagonist relaxation. So they basically do the opposite side of the body that they just worked,
Yeah.
And they're still getting that rest for the prime mover in the first exercise, So you can think about it, be strategic about what you put in there. I'm sorry if I'm digressing, but it's basically
no. So it's important in this, like it's what you were saying here.
Yeah, circuit with purpose, exactly. I think it's important to, especially in this stage of the off season, to just think about, especially for body comp, try not to think of, how should I say this? With each circuit, I think it's vital to kind of do a full whole round strength stimulus, where, for instance, if you say, I really want to improve my swim, I need to do lots of pull, I need to do lots of pull, I need to do lots of bent row, I need to do lots of pull-ups. That's great. I understand that. But you will get the benefit more from doing a really good pull movement and including push movements as well, kind of making your body more well-rounded, I'd say, for injury prevention, for overall athletic athleticism. I think that's important. Yeah.
And I might have messed this up in here. Would you do dynamic warm-up, strength in prime movers, and then the circuit with purpose? Or would you structure it in this way, circuit with purpose, then strength in prime movers? Or would that depend on the athlete? It
depends on the athlete. But if I was, when I make an 8-week program that I have available, it would be a good dynamic warm-up that has a lot of injury prevention work in there. Stuff that makes you feel good after a long run as well. Not just pure dynamic warm-up, but also a bit at the beginning of rolling out, good mobility, static stretching even still. But then getting into a dynamic warm-up, doing circuits with purpose. When you think about like prime, like for instance, it says strength in prime movers. There's no reason why you can't put the strength in prime movers and make that the main
into the circuit.
Yeah. And I think 2-3 circuits is plenty, and then you're going to get a lot of benefit doing the high intensity interval training at the end.
And I think, again, just for clarity, this is based around improvement in body composition.
Yes, exactly.
It would look significantly different for a person in season and how that would look.
Yeah, and it's just like fuel in with nutrition. It's like, what would you have this person? What would you have everyone eat for this? And it's like, well, everyone's different. And so it depends on the athlete, depends on the history, depends on what they need. What they want as well, I think, is a huge one that a lot of people overlook. So yeah, I know that's kind of a gray answer.
No, look, and I'm sure some of the athletes will ask questions afterwards. So what I did here, I just put in what I wanted to give an example here is how the athlete would, because we'll show how you use a separate app But if athletes were programming it in and were working with you, then all they need to do in this instance, if they're using Training Peaks or if they're using today's plan, they would just put in simply, as I have done there in this is my program. They just need to document strength the 3 days a week, wherever it is. So strength with the 3 bracket, which indicates the zone 3 or the intensity for 1 hour. I've got it in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that's it. And it just works around the rest of my program. Now, that's obviously a discussion with the coach on what days the strength plans go in. They would certainly want to have, and again, I imagine you have guidelines around at least 24 hours in between the sessions, especially if they're full body workouts. But it's as simple as that from a programming perspective for the athletes, just to put in to their training program. All we need to know from Fuelin is that you're doing strength for an hour at zone 3 on whatever day you specify. So that's all I wanted to show from that perspective. So it's very easy for athletes to program it in.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, so this is Bridge. These are just some screenshots from you. I did say to him, it does happen on iOS as well, doesn't it? Because this is Android, and Matty has assured me it works on iOS, so it is compatible with the iPhone.
Yeah, Bridge is interesting. It's a really good strength and conditioning platform that the best teams in the world are using right now. There's a few of them, but there's kind of 3 that are the top ones. Bridge is one of them. It's just super easy for the athlete to go through on their phone, and it has all the exercises, videos of what you need, instructions, the weight to lift. There's also a lot of things on there, like baseline testing. You can put your testing in there, and then every time that you test, you can look at the analytics of it and see how you're improving and whatnot. It's a really powerful tool. I wouldn't be doing it justice right now if I said that I could say everything it does in 30 seconds, but just trust me that it is very professional, very clear. And it's what all the top teams are using right now, especially over COVID, when everyone's athletes were all over the world, and pro teams had to get their program out to their athletes, and this was it. I like it for sure. There's a lot of benefits to it. You see a lot of people making their own app, but
why make something?
It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
I think what's really nice about it is there's that level of accountability for the coach to have visibility over it as well, much like we can see when athletes are, tracking calories and tracking their macros and completing exercise sessions and things like that. So as a coach, we can review that if it's required. Much the same way here, you can see, are they doing the work required? Are they doing all their sets, or are they only doing 50% of the work? And therefore that explains why they're not getting the results. So I think it's very clean. It's very nice. I certainly like it. And I think it's a good decision.
It's another cool feature in it is that it has in-app messaging as well with your coach, which is really good too. So you don't even have to jump off, send emails, do whatever. You can literally just hit it up and, hit up your coach through it.
And I think that's really nice. Like the athlete, if obviously in Fuelin, we've got the capability to message the coach, and same thing. If, people want to have a nutrition coach and a strength coach and an exercise coach, you have the ability to have that and be able to, speak specifically and directly to that coach if it's required based on that. So that's really cool. How, so we touched lightly on this, your view on strength and what would sort of it look like in terms of, differing ways to hit differing things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different levels of lifting that, there's no reason why you can't throw in these exercises, for instance, lunges, physio hamstring curls, very easy to administer exercises that really make you stronger. And there's no reason why you can't throw that in already. Even in season, these things will keep you healthy. So I think that's important. There's a lot of things there. The second one, push something heavy. I think that was more of a mindset. I think it's important for people to go for it. It's I think it's easy I've had a lot of especially runners that were a little what's the word, hesitant to really push in the gym, thinking that they'll put on size. And you know what, for that population, I'd be shocked if they could put on a pound of muscle, really. Like, with the amount of running they do, you may as well go for it in the gym and feel good, athletic, get a good testosterone response. I think the mindset is go for it instead of kind of polishing statues, not improving.
Well, I think we've talked about this before previously as well, is that fear of putting on lean muscle. And two things I'll say about that is, you should not be fearful of putting on lean muscle, because lean muscle will result in power, and power makes you go faster, and ultimately going faster makes you win races. So that's the first point about putting muscle. Second point is your stimulus as an endurance athlete. Like, even if you're in the gym for 8 weeks doing body comp, 8 weeks is probably the minimum amount of time to put on some significant lean mass. The majority of your improvement in body composition is probably maintenance of lean mass with a reduction in body fat. And I think that's really important. So that reduction in body fat will occur because the stimulus is there to increase total energy expenditure whilst being in a caloric deficit. So, but if we can maintain lean mass during that 8 weeks, you've had a great result. And that's really important for everyone to understand. You are not going to become the Hulk, okay? Will not become the Hulk. Please don't fear of it. And if any of you put on a pound of muscle, awesome. You'll probably feel even better. Like, don't be upset by that. So that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. And at the end, the exercises and a finisher, this is more like stuff you can do at home, but finishers and high intensity interval training, there's no reason that you can't. The big thing about high intensity interval training is it's vital for you to go hard for a period of time. So let's say 30 seconds, all out. And you know what? Like, there's no problem doing that on a bike, on a rower, on running stairs. It literally is just the intensity that you really have to go for in a multi-joint fashion.
I fell off the rower this morning, so during high intensity interval training. So you only need an erg. That's all you need. So,
for sure. It's a lot of people, I think, would get kind of lost. We'll do this over in this section. We'll do this over in this space. We'll do this. No. Just go hard on a bike, go on an assault bike, go on a spin bike. You can go on your trainer, your turbo. Like, it's and then you do hard, and as long as you are really giving it, and then you have a period of time where you are not, where you are resting, and then you go again. So 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or Tabata, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. It really is the intensity that is the magic potion in this.
I mean, I laugh because you got burpees at number 2, and if you want to do a true hit session, do 20 seconds of burpees with 10 seconds rest, and do 16 sets or 16 rounds, which is 8 minutes work. And I challenge anyone to do it, but you do not need any equipment to hurt yourself, to physically probably throw up. So it's not hard to do. And everyone, burpees is the thing. Everyone's like, oh, I don't want to do burpees. And it's like, why don't you want to do burpees? Oh, they're hard. Yeah, of course they're hard. That's why they're good. So I think it's be creative. I like your last point, that it's get creative, because ultimately that's what it's about. I know I put this slide in. I had this for Craig, and I think the reason I kept it in is because I thought you had a very good point. And I liked, do you want to just explain your thinking around this, that maybe your way of thinking?
Yeah. So these are strength numbers that you see a lot of in research, and you see a lot of in team sports as well. And they are. If you can do these numbers, you're an impressive athlete. And you're a good athlete, and squatting twice your body weight, deadlift 2.5 times your body weight, and such. And this is great. But for this population, especially with the degree of lifting experience, doing one rep maxes, for instance. You can do it for pull-up, obviously, but And then I was talking to Scott and I was just saying, you know what, like, I get this, but also, you know, do you think Jan Frodeno can squat twice his body weight? Like, I don't think so. Like, maybe he can. He's a pretty impressive person, so maybe he can, but that doesn't win him Kona, you know, because he can squat twice his body weight. He's just a machine, you know. And I think that the best thing to do for your strength targets, especially in this off season, would be to do some baseline testing, you know, go into the gym, write down 4 exercises that you're like, okay, I know how to do these exercises, and I'm confident that if I went hard in these, I'm not going to hurt myself. So for instance, if you have a buddy and you go in and you do a dumbbell chest press, you know, how much weight can you do for 5 reps, and have him spot you or her spot you. And then do another testing round in 8 weeks time and see, you know, because I think for the personalization of testing is so important that we can't just throw out a number to you. It's important that you get better, you get stronger, and you see the roadmap of your improvement, you know, because there's so many things with triathlon that make you the champion. Whether it's your nutrition, for instance, your power to rate ratio, your efficiency in running, your aero position on your bike, you know, like there's so many things that come into play that saying the strength number is just kind of missing the point. It's one thing that goes along with the big picture, you know.
And just to jump on that, I actually was thinking about this more and more, and it was something I was listening to recently as well. Some researchers talking about this. So if you feel you've got to improve body comp, yes, strength training is important, but maybe the performance parameter that you actually use in this off-season period doesn't have to be a strength parameter. Use it as one of your performance parameters. So it might be a 5K time trial run.
Mm-hmm.
It might be your FTP 20 minutes. Do it before you start this 8-week training period. Then do your 5K time trial, your FTP 20-minute bike session at the end of the 8 weeks when you've had that improvement in body comp. Has it improved? Has losing all that body fat and body weight improved your 5K time trial?
Yeah.
Has it improved your functional threshold power on the bike? Yes, it has. No, it hasn't. Okay. That's interesting. Build from that. So also in terms of those body composition stand markers, make sure there is a marker as well to say, have you improved your body comp? Not just the number on the scale. So i.e. DEXA scan would be preferred. If you can't do that, maybe calipers from someone who understands how to do an ISAC measurement. If you can't get that, a really good quality bioelectrical impedance. Worst case, tape measure around your waist and around your hips and some photos and a weight scale. But be objective with those measures, i.e. the body composition and those performance measures. And to Matt's point, maybe it's not a 2 times body, 2 times your body weight on a squat, because if you get to that, great. How does that relate to what you're trying to do in the, in the actual season? So I agree, Matt. I think it got me thinking about this, and I love strength, obviously, but, and if someone got to 2 times body weight on a deadlift, I'm pretty sure they'll probably improve their power output on the bike as well.
For sure.
But maybe it's not the key. Look, if you go from being able to deadlift 40 kilos and you can now deadlift 80 kilos, but 80 kilos is only 1 times your body weight, you've still doubled your power.
Exactly.
And then next season, you maybe get to 1.25 and then you get to 1.5. And, it's probably taken me, 20 years to get anywhere near that. Don't expect to hit these numbers in 8 weeks, I think is the important thing. Like if you're going to start squatting or deadlifting, do not expect to hit 2 times or 2.5 times your body weight very quickly. It might take you 5 or 6 seasons, and that's fine because that's cool as well.
And more to your point as well, like I completely agree with the objectivity of numbers and all that. But I also think, subjectivity is also a great measure as well. So for instance, I remember when I was at UCSB, there was this runner that her form would just like fall apart after 6K and a 10K, you know, and she was a great runner, but she just had zero strength, you know. And we worked with her, and you know, something as basic as doing more trunk work, core stability work, and then subjectively we were able to, well, she was able to see photos of herself and be like, wow, I have the same running form in my 10K at the end as I did at the beginning. Like I'm more robust, I'm stronger in what I do, you know, and that's subjective. But it made her feel good and made her faster, you know.
Yeah, and objectively, were her times better?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were. Yeah,
and that's probably the main thing.
yeah, exactly.
I know you've covered a few of these points, and I do want to try and allow at least 10 minutes of Q&A. Do you want to run through sort of the key points here of what you think?
Yeah. I kind of made this slide because it was kind of this is not just body comp. I was thinking about some other things with regards to once you've gone through the body comp phase, and don't just leave the gym, like keep this up. Think about other things. So working on weaknesses and deficiencies, and thinking about limiting factors in your race and training, I think are so vital. So for instance, if you are just not a strong swimmer, or you are a good swimmer and you just have let's say a terrible start, you can't make the front group, you know, you should be thinking about improving your upper body power, pull power. You know, you could be doing a whole bunch of stuff with a strength coach where you're doing a big multi-joint movement into post-activation potentiation. So basically a big pull movement, like a pull-up into med ball slams, and you're really activating more muscle fibers doing that. You're increasing your power, and you're really saying like, I want to improve my swim off the line. And that is my limiting factor, because I lose the group, I lose it by 3 minutes, I can't make it back on the bike or the run. This is my limiting factor. You can improve that in the gym in a time efficient manner. You know, it doesn't just have to be sprinting in a pool to get you there. This is supplementary, it can help. Like the story I said on the runner that improved their form, you know, that was a limiting factor for her. Getting on top of a gear on a bike, I just can't maintain that power. Like, you know, strength endurance work in the gym can help with this, you know. So single leg work, all sorts of stuff can think about your race, and not just, I need to improve my bike, I need to improve my run. Think about it way more with a magnifying glass, way more into it, and say, what about my run is bad? You know, like for instance, I'm not a runner. Like I was a swim cyclist, and the run was just holding on for dear life. And looking back on it now, I'm like, okay, so I was eccentrically weak. I could not take in the forces required to be stable and running and maintain. Every time my foot hit the ground, I was weak, man. Like I wasn't propelling forward. I was just kind of like falling apart every step, you know, trunk work, all sorts. It was just, looking back on it now, I could have improved myself so much, but that's just the way it is. And I think people can do that with their swim, with their bike. There's so many things that you can do to really improve triathlon, not just improve the sport, one of the sports in general, you know. Anyways, S&C a priority at this moment in the year. It's so true. Like take this seriously. You know, you can still go out on your bike, you can still go for runs. Just think about the order at which you do things. Are you exhausted after a run? That's probably not a good day to do single leg work. You know, it's obvious, but a lot of people, when they're training, have their blinders on, and they're just like, they'd rather tick things off the list that they did, rather than look at each one and say, did I do that as well as possible? You know, yes, I did.
And we certainly, you know, it's certainly a big push at the moment to get athletes thinking about their purpose.
Exactly,
in the fuelin app as well. And if they are thinking, body comp, then prioritize that and talk
yeah,
to their coach, that this is where they're prioritizing. And, it's a long season, isn't it?
yeah,
It's like, I
exactly.
think that's the other thing. It's like, you don't have to be at your peak on day one of January 1st.
Yeah.
Like if you're at your peak, you're probably not going to make the end of the season. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. And that kind of leads me on to the next point is progress your mobility. It's so hard to get on top of your mobility when the workload is high, you know. So you can really make inroads with your mobility, which will improve your performance now in the off season. And then you can make these gains where you can really improve it. And then even after a big phase of work in all three sports, you can maintain that flexibility by just doing a few sessions here and there a week, you know, and it will drastically improve your robustness and your ability to avoid injury.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, I know we've talked about this a lot with athletes about, skinny and strong, and also that light race matters. And I think we even just touched on that with, be objective, set out your performance markers and your body comp markers early on and reassess yourself. And I think it's great you're sort of talking about that as well. I just want to make sure we won't cover that because we covered that last time. Again, this is what we were talking about, is really focus on their purpose and how we set it up, and make sure all the athletes are aware of that. And I think pretty much all the athletes are aware of that now, and really dialing that in with that focus on body composition post-season, Jim, which is good. So I'll stop sharing. And I know there's a few questions, and I would definitely want to allow. So are finishers after each exercise or their own set at the end of the weight training session, Matty?
I'm sorry, you mind repeating that? Sorry.
So are finishers after each exercise, or are they their own set at the end of the weight training session?
Yeah, own set at the end, because you want to be scooping yourself up off the floor, and you want to be in a position where you're like, I do not want to lift anymore.
I know.
As much as that sounds like it sucks, which it does, but it is it's so beneficial, So at the end of the session,
I will just say to this, I think the word finisher is actually a horrible word. I'd love for you or another strength and conditioning trainer to come up with a better word that isn't so negative, because every time I see it at the end of my session, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be picking myself up off the floor. And this comes down back to Pavel Chatsuskis, whatever his name is, and the Russians. They don't have a word for workout. They only practice. They practice. So maybe the word for finisher should just be practice, and you're practicing, killing yourself, or practicing getting fitter, or practicing improving body comp. But
yeah,
I think there's a lot to it.
You're right,
It's a really negative
word about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're literally finishing yourself off, which doesn't sound great. So I implore you to actually come up with a better word for the end of a training session when you're literally going to be scraping yourself off the floor. But
okay, I'll make it my personal mission.
Exactly. Deepa asked, is 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps for each exercise and a finisher a good guideline?
Great question. And sorry, I didn't mention the reps. But yes, I think that's great. It's it's a round number. It's I would say in this population, 10 to 12 reps is fine. Yeah. I realize people will be, if you really wanted to get really strong and just do this, I would have a whole rep scheme. But this is something that is in addition to your other sports. I think that this is 10 to 12, especially unless you have a real big lifting history. I think that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But on that, and again, for the novice, like, yes, 12 reps might be the range, but how do you get them to realize that maybe the weight they haven't picked isn't actually for 12 reps and they could do it 20 times?
Yeah.
Like, do you get them, do you get the athletes to sort of maybe at the end of the second or third set to actually go to failure and then record that and go, actually, I was told to do 12 reps, but I could do 25. How do you adjust that for them so that they understand, geez, maybe the weight I lifted was only 50% of what I was capable of?
Yeah, I think reflection is the big thing, right? It's just like anything in life. If you go through it and you're like, that was actually quite easy, then, don't be afraid to go off the program, and think about it. And that's where the progressive overload comes in that Craig was talking about. It's like, it is steps going up and up and up. So you want to be in a position where you're like, okay, am I ready for the next step now? And it's okay to do that. As long as the next time you do it is a bit more intense, a bit more intense, a bit more intense. And then you get to a point where you need that recovery week, and then you can climb back up again. It's like a, step ladder going up and up and up and up and up, just like any of the other sports training.
Yeah. Okay. And this relates to the next question. So Noel asked, and I know what you'll say. It's, I always thought aiming for 2 to 3 circuits, I'm assuming she's saying sets of 3 to 6 reps of heavy weight training per exercise plus hit at the end would be better for me as a female in my early 40s. Now, I certainly have my thoughts around that, but where would you say that fits in context to postseason, preseason, in season? Is that where you would distinguish that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Scott. It's like, it depends on the time of year is a huge point of that question, where it's okay to do that. That's awesome. For sure, but is this the time of year to do that right after the season? Probably not. I'd probably push it more towards the preseason, where you're really like maximizing those strength gains that came before. But yeah, good on you. No, that's good.
Noel, does that answer are you still on? No, Noel, are you still on? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does answer my question. That's helpful. Thanks so much.
So
more, you're saying like focusing now on more reps, like while I'm trying to rebuild after the season, and then once, like, say 4 weeks in, I really start dialing it back to like heavier weight, the 3 to 5 rep range.
It depends on what you want to do. Like if it's if you want to improve body comp, or is this more of like a general strength before the season?
I would say it's both. Like, well, for example, right now I'm kind of in I guess like a postseason period, but I'm also gearing up for Ironman New Zealand in March, and so I'm starting to get back because my last race really was the 1st of October. So now I've been lifting, and I love to lift. I love to do like HIIT training. That's like my favorite thing. I don't know why I keep doing Ironmans, but I do want to, like change my body, continue to like change my body composition, but also, build that strength. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much with regards to the rep scheme. If you're going hard in the gym and you feel that you're getting stronger and you're doing high intensity and full training, like you're ahead of the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably what we'll do, Noel, as well. I can. I know we put in an article on the website which is around the body composition training. I've got Craig and Matt's email addresses. And we can provide that. Actually, Matty, do you want to just type your email address in the chat here?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So that if athletes want to reach out to you and just, lean into you, I think for specific questions, I think it would be really good.
Yeah, please do.
So Heidi asked, I've been told by my coach to focus on core stability, balance, Pilates due to challenges with injuries. Do I need to focus on that before getting into heavy lifting? As aforementioned, exercise are usually with bands and body weight only. Again, I have my views on this, but Matt, what's yours?
I don't see any reason why you can't do it concurrently, and this leads me back to what I was saying about there's so many exercises you can do for specific movements. So if you want to do, let's say, a lower body prime mover for triathlon. You want to increase your quad strength. You know, I don't see any reason why you can't do walking lunges, you know, because that's a very simple movement, but it will make you strong. It's not complex. You can in the same session, you could do the exercises from Pilates, core stability, you know. I don't see any reason why, unless there's an injury there that I don't know of, but yeah, I would strategically put it into the same session.
And I'm just going to say, from my physio hat perspective, if we look at EMG, which is the amount of activity in a muscle and muscle groups, when people squat, when people deadlift, when people do pull-ups, the amount of muscle activation in the abdominal cavity is so much higher than anything you're doing on a Pilates reformer, okay, or doing a sit-up or anything like that. So this notion of core stability has been sort of a little bit poo-pooed in more recent years, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of people haven't caught up with it, but there is a lot of benefit from doing a walk. You will probably get more trunk stability work from doing a single-handed kettlebell walking lunge than you will from lying on your back doing a dead bug. Just saying, you want to prevent injuries, do some asymmetrical lifting, things like that. You'll work out where it's hard pretty quickly. So I'm not saying Pilates isn't beneficial, because I think it is. Yeah. I just think, as Matt said, if you want to get stronger, you got to lift something heavy. Okay. There is a distinction between making muscle work harder and growing versus doing sort of endurance work, which is more that core stability. So again, back to Matt's point about think about your deficiencies. Like in this one, like my running isn't good. Well, what's not good about your running? Are you not powerful, or is it your form, or is it a bit of both? Where do you need to work on? I think it's all just thinking about it in a little bit more, with a little bit more specificity, I think is probably the key thing. Libby Bradley had a question. She said, should you do a finisher at the end of all 3 strength session days to start? Any benefit of starting with 1 day a week and doing an easy run or bike afterwards instead of the finisher to adapt to that Z5 session? Is that right, Libby? Do you want to ask that again if you're still on? Maybe I messed it up.
No, that's right. I actually was talking about this with my coach, and this is more in the context of the treadmill. So doing like high intensity interval run training after the strength sessions. And he made the comment that maybe it wasn't smart for me to want to do them 3 days a week, and start with maybe 1, just because maybe I wouldn't adapt as well doing a lot of VO2 to begin. So that was the genesis of the question. I realize it's different maybe if you're doing something that's not running, but just open that up as a question.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think whatever you're comfortable with is the most important thing, first of all. If you want to do 1 session at the start, I think that's fine. You obviously won't get the same benefit as 3, but then I also don't see the rest of your program in the question, you know, like I don't know if earlier that day you had intervals or, you know, so I think it's important, like you are, to be mindful of your program, but ideally it would be to get the biggest benefit of the stuff in the gym. For body comp, it would be to do resistance training with a HIIT. But you still get benefit after a session, 2 sessions a week doing that.
And Maddie, maybe Livy, to your point, it doesn't always have to be treadmill running.
Right.
It could be cross training in that sense. So it could be, like we said, burpees. It could be ski erg. It could be something that maybe offloads the Achilles, the knee, everything that is maybe what your coach is concerned about, but still getting that metabolic, you know, that hard, high intensity interval session in without compromising maybe the elements your coach is concerned about. Maybe that's something that, you know, it would be a discussion with someone like Matt and your coach and yourself to make sure you know, I don't know I can't remember how old you are, Libby, sorry. But it could be a factor if, you know, if you're a slightly older athlete and maybe we want to reduce total, you know, time on feet and things like that. So.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I'm 31, by the way. But yeah, that's
you're
helpful.
31.
I'll suggest.
You're a
I'll
junior.
suggest
You're a
mixing
junior.
it
Battle
up.
ropes, yes.
You go to heaps. You go to heaps. I'll never forget. Matt said to me, I remember we were running. I don't think I never run. I was never running. I was never into like aerobic exercise when I first met Matt at Toronto, and he was always running on the treadmill. And I was like, dude, why are you doing that? Why don't you just lift weights? And it's much better. And he's like, man, the day I can't run, I'm out. That's it. If I can't run anymore, I'm out. And I was like, well, it's really interesting. And so it got me thinking about running more. And as I've got older, I'm like, yeah, I want to be able to run until I'm like 90. So now there's this sort of internal drive that I want to be able to keep running. So,
yeah, my training's a bit weird. Like it's like the running, for instance, it's I kind of come from I obviously love performance, and that's, you know, what I'm into in terms of my career and stuff, but I also love like the Dan Buettner Blue Zone stuff, that you live to 100 years old, and like, what does that actually look like? Can you move when you're 100? You know, so I'm into that too. So I feel like if you can't run, you know, you age quickly. That's what I think. You know,
it's cool. I like it. I think it's an interesting way of thinking about it, and you know, moving quick, not just, you know, lifting heavy stuff slowly, but thinking about quick movements as well, because you know, ultimately most of these athletes want to move fast. And that's, I guess, where energy, you know, and there's all this talk about energy in at the moment and going fast. And I think, again, it's like strength training, it's like nutrition. It's all got to be context specific, depending on what your purpose is and what your goals are. Like, I think everyone's now hearing about the Norwegian like hype train, like, oh shit, I just got to eat a heap and I'm going to be amazing. It's like, well, that's not always the case, guys. Like, let's calm down. And now there's this like, you know, there was, has anyone listened to the most recent Coopcast podcast? Has anyone listened to that? Go and listen to it, and then everyone feed back to me about what you think. But yeah, it's really interesting. They're talking about the upper limits of, you know, metabolism, and that it's probably, and I know Alexander Boo from the Hype Train is talking about this, it's probably around something like 2.5 times your resting metabolic rate, which is your total capacity. But then they were talking about it, and they're like, you know, that's the equivalent of running 50 Ks a day. And I'm like, well, who's running 50 Ks a day? Like, yeah, I don't know if anyone does that. And then they were saying, oh, but, you know, obviously these ultra runners apparently do this. And then the scientist got on, and he was like, yeah, but most of them are lying. So like, there's so much conflict in data about all this, like upper limits, and are they going above the upper limits? But again, I think it's really important for people to dive into the details of these studies, look at numbers that they're looking at. They looked at 6 people. Like, 6 people is not scientific evidence, people. So again, just whenever you read any of this or listen to it, just think, like, ask why. Why is that happening, or is that possible? And I think it's all really good. Anyway, that's my rant about it, but it's a good podcast anyway. So Noel put in battle ropes as an option for high intensity. Awesome. Hate those things. Hate them. They're terrible, Noel. They're terrible. But yeah, they're very good. Kettlebells, all that sort of stuff. I know Matt's put in his email into the chat, so everyone save that if you do want to ask him some questions, and we'll have some more information. I'm going to get Matt to try and write an article. I know I had Craig write an article recently about strength training, so it'd be good to get his take on, you know, a topic. If you've got some topics you'd like him to write about, that would be really cool. I think if we don't have any more questions, then we can end it, because I know Matt's in Bermuda and it's probably getting on there in terms of time of day. But look, Matty, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. I love your energy, and I love your the way you approach athleticism and strength training. I think it's a real breath of fresh air, and it's not, you know, one sort of size fits all. So I think the athletes will definitely benefit from your new venture and your new program, which I think is really exciting, and will certainly benefit from it by having you as a resource. So thank you for
having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun, and it's awesome just talking about triathlon, because it's the best sport in my mind. Like it's, I mean, I've worked for so many sports now, but there's nothing quite like, and everyone here knows, getting off the bike, being super sweaty and salty, and you're running in this beautiful place, and you're just you and nature going hard. Like it's pretty cool, you know. So yeah, it's the best sport. So yeah, please, I'd love to work with you because I love your sport.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Matt. I think they're a very unique bunch of athletes, very dedicated to their craft, and it certainly makes them very easy to work with. I always compare them to professional hockey players, and it's a world of difference, even though majority of these athletes aren't professional athletes, but in their attitude, they're far more professional. So that's another talk. That's another topic of conversation we can have maybe with everyone about professionalism. So
Part 2, professionalism.
Cool. Well, look, thank you, everyone. I hope it's been enjoyable, and please fill in the questionnaire at the end of the session. And you've got Matt's email. You can reach out to him, and obviously reach out to us if you've got any questions about how it all works. But thank you very much.
Cool. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Cool. Is everyone off? Did everyone just jump off super rapidly? You on? Oh, hey, Matty.
Hey, man.
That's all right. That was cool.
Yeah, that was great, man.
I think Matt,